Alright, so here are my notes on equations with fractions. Every single equation, no matter the size or how difficult it looks, will be able to be solved using the 4 steps that I've been trying to burn into your heads throughout this whole chapter. Now, the last 2 are super easy. That's one-step equation. And what I mean by that is, if it says plus 2, how do I get rid of a plus 2? Minus by 2. Then the rules that we did for 2-step equations, which that's the what should I get rid of first. That's the you get rid of the things that you're not attached to. The biggest one, or the most important one, is this number 2. It's the long-winded one. Get all variables to one side. And then the first step, we've talked about this the last couple days, is to simplify. If you do those 4 steps, and you know how to add and subtract and multiply and divide, equations really shouldn't be that bad for you. Unfortunately, a lot of us really can't add or subtract, so we have a hard time with some of these. My goal for these notes is to show you some of these equations that you're going to see on the state test, because they're not going to give us easy ones. They're going to give us these sort of difficult-looking ones. So my learning target for these notes is I can solve equations involving decimals and fractions, because that's what I've seen a lot of in my couple years of teaching here. Alright, so the first 2 equations came off of the state test last year. As you can see, some of them have fractions and some of them have decimals. And that's okay. The nice thing about it is if they give you something like this, more than likely they're going to give you a calculator for it. So let's take a look at example 1. Let's definitely use our calculator if we need it. And when you guys do example 2 on the next page, definitely use a calculator for that. So let's flip back to this one and let's do this one together just to show you that it's nothing crazy. It's just you might need to use a calculator. So I'm going to draw my line down and I'm going to look back up and I'm going to see the first thing I need to do is simplify. So is there anything I can simplify on the left side of this equation? Obviously not. You can't put something with an r with something that doesn't have an r. How about on the right side? Is there anything that you can simplify? That one does not have an r, that one does. Obviously you can't. So now, step 2 is get all variables to one side. Well, I always told you to get rid of the smaller one first, so let's get rid of this 1.5 by minusing 1.5 on both sides. Now this should be painful for some of you because we should know what 2 minus 1.5 is, but if we don't, that's okay. I'm just going to go 2 minus 1.5 in my calculator and get 0.5. I don't need to say $0.50. I can just say 50 cents, like that, plus 12. Was there anything really that difficult about that? I really hope not. This side is 0, and this side is 16.5. It's just pressing buttons. So now, what type of equation is this? There's my r, and there's 2 things around it. You should be saying a 2-step equation, because that's how it goes with those steps. So which one do I get rid of here first? The thing that's attached, this 0.5, or this 12 that's not attached? Hopefully you're saying the 12. I get rid of 12 by minusing 12. Now, again, this should be painful for some of you, because you should be able to do 16.5 minus 12 off the top of your head. But don't be overconfident. If you're not 100% sure, use your calculator. 16.5 minus 12, and I end up getting 4.5. So now I got 4.5 is equal to 0.5 r. All right? Last step, how do I get rid of what operation is this right here between the r and the 0.5? Hopefully you're thinking multiplication. So how do I get rid of a multiplication? Yes, we divide by 0.5 on both sides. And when I do that, you might need a calculator for that one, unless you're really, really good with decimals. I'm going to go 4.5 divided by 0.5, and I end up getting 9 as my final answer. See how it's really not that intimidating, as long as you have something to do all the arithmetic for you. So now when we flip the page, I want you guys to try this one, because again, that one should have been pretty painful. Before we do it though, in the past, a lot of my students have had a hard time just with this first step. So I'm going to sort of walk you through the first step. 0.2 times d is 0.2d, and 0.2 times negative 6. 6 negative times 0.2 equals negative 1.2. Negative 1.2 is equal to, I'm going to stop right there, have you guys try this one on your own. So pause the video, try it on your own. Hopefully that was enough of a little bit of a push in the right direction. All right, hopefully that was enough time for you to pause it, try it. So let's take a look. On the right side, what simplifying can I do? It's 0.3 plus 0.1 in your calculators. 0.3 plus 0.1 is equal to 0.4. Yes, that painful. Plus, now it's just 5 minus 3. That is 2. All right, so now let's get all the variables to one side. I'm going to minus 0.2 and minus 0.2d. I drop down the negative 1.2. I'm assuming a lot of us messed up right there. Make sure that it's a negative 1.2 is equal to 0.2d plus 2. All right. Here comes the hardest part of this problem. How do I get rid of this positive 2? I minus 2 on both sides. This was the spot that I was going nuts when my students were doing this. A lot of them missed what is negative 1.2 minus 2. 1.2 negative minus 2 is negative 3.2. I'm assuming a lot of you guys have something different than that because we can't use a calculator correctly. But it is negative 3.2 is equal to 0.2d. Divide both sides by 0.2. And we end up getting d is equal to 3.2 divided by 0.2 is 16. And last but not least, let's figure out the sign on this. We said that this is a negative. This one's a positive. So these two are not happy to be together, so it's going to be negative 16. All right? All right, so let's move on to the next section. We're going to talk about some fractions next. These can be a little bit more tricky. There's a bunch of different ways to do example 2. I can show you how to do it by hand. With one of your calculators, it's really, really easy. My calculators can't do fractions just like yours can, so mine is going to be a little bit crappier than yours, but you really could just divide both sides by what right here to get rid of that 2/7. Hopefully you're saying you could just divide both sides by 2/7. And your calculators could do that by doing negative 4 divided by 2abc7. Unfortunately, I don't have one of those, so I'm going to go off on the side of my paper and do it the old-fashioned way. Negative 4 divided by 2 over 7. What do I put over or underneath that negative 4? Hopefully you knew it was a 1. Negative 4 over 1. Keep, multiply, flip, like McClure used to say, times 7 over 2. Negative 28 over 2, which is negative how much? 14. Okay, so x is equal to negative 14. And again, you could have just put that in your calculator and done it a lot easier than what I just did. There's another thing I could have done on example 2 that I'm going to have to do on example 3. Now I can go through and do all the hard work like I just did for example 3. But there's one way to make it a little bit easier. And that's by getting a common denominator for all of my fractions. And even the non-fractions. Like this number 1 really is a 1 over what? 1. So that being said, let's get a common denominator for these guys. So what is a common denominator for 4, 1, 6, and 2? Well, it's going to be 12. Hopefully one of you guys shouted that out, or at least we're thinking that by now. The next thing is this x. See how it's on the side? It can be just put on top. And the reason being is if it's 1/4 times x, it's really x over 1. 4 times 1 is 4 over 1 times x is x. So really the x is just on top. The next step is let's change all our numerators. So instead of 4 over 1, we made it 12. So now let's change the top as well. What did I multiply 4 by to get 12? Obviously it was 3, so 3 times 1 is 3. I multiplied 1 by 12 to get 12, so let's make that a 12. I multiplied 6 by 2 to get 12, so there's 12, so 2x. And I multiplied 2 by 6 to get 12, so 6 times 1 is 6. Now the reason I do that is because, you don't even need to know why, we can magically just get rid of all the denominators now. I'm actually just multiplying everything by 12, which is a legal thing to do because I'm doing it by everything. But you don't even need to know that. You just need to know that they magically go away. I know that you can't erase yours, I can erase mine, and it really is the same thing now. Okay? So now that I have that, let's solve this like we would any other equation. Is there any simplifying I can do to this left side? 3x and 12. Obviously not. Right side is 2x and 6. Obviously not. So let's subtract 2x's on both sides. That makes 0. This makes 1x, or just x, plus 12 is 6. Does everyone see where this is going now? Minus 12 on both sides. X is equal to negative 6. Okay? I was going to have you try 2 and 3, except in the past a lot of people have been getting number 3 wrong, so let's go over one more like that. Remember, this x can be put over 1, and now let's find a common denominator for number 3. Just like the last example that I just did, its common denominator is what? 12. I multiplied 1 by 12 to get 12, so it's 12x. I multiplied 3 by 4 to get 12, so it's 4 over 12. And I multiplied 4 by 3 to get 12, so it's 27. This one doesn't work out super nice. That's okay, though. Your answer is just going to be a fraction. So I'm going to subtract 4 on each side. And I'm going to get 12x is 23. I think they really wanted to say 24. I'm going to divide both sides by 12. And x is whatever the heck 23 divided by 12 is. They might give you a calculator or not. If not, just leave it as 23 over 12. Okay? If you want to pause it and try number 1, or number 2, feel free. I'll give you a second to do that. All right. So if I had one of your nice calculators, I would just divide both sides by 3/5, and I would get an answer right away. X is equal to, no idea because I don't have your nice calculator, so I'm going to go 12 over 1 divided by 3 over 5. And I'm going to go 12 over 1 times 5 over 3, which gives me, I could pre-reduce, 1, 4, gives me 20. Okay? So one last page, and then we're done. Ones that look like this. Now, ones that look like this are so much harder looking than what they really are. If I said, I'm just going to give you one question on a test. That one right there. Oops, let's not even write it like that. Let's write it like this. Is that possible for you to do it? Yeah, it is. Why is this one just a little bit tough? You should be saying, I have no idea what 17 times 19 is off the top of my head. So now if I had a calculator, I could easily do that. Or, couldn't you go off on the side of your paper like this and do it? It's exactly what we're taking a look at here. The reason that this looks hard is because most of you have no idea what 1/3 times 3 is off the top of your head. So let's go off on the side of our paper and do 1/3 times 3. Well, we already talked about it in these notes. What are you supposed to do if you just have a 3? Over 1, you can pre-reduce 1 and 1. What's 1 times 1? 1. So now this is 1x. Does anyone know what 1/3 times 15 is? I don't. So I'm going to go off on the side of my paper and do the same process here. 1, 5. 1 times 5 is 5. So now it's 1x minus 5 is 10. Add 5 on both sides. And I end up getting x is 15. All right? Let's do one more example because I can see how people could be confused by that. 2/5 times 10 is not something I know off the top of my head, so I'm going to go off on the side of my paper. You could just get 20 over 5, and that's 4. I like to pre-reduce, make this a 1 and a 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4x. I have no idea what 2/5 times 25 is. 1, 5, 2 times 5 is 10. Is equal to 26. Two-step equation, let's subtract 10 on both sides. And 4x is 16. Divide both sides by 4, and x is 4. All right? One last one for you guys to try. And That's it. So pause it, try it, and unpause it when you're done. All right, hopefully that was enough time for you to try this one. So again, I don't know what 3/4 times 4 is, so I'm going to go off on the side of my paper like this, put 4 over 1, pre-reduce, get rid of the 4's. I end up getting 3x. 3/4 times 8. 1, 2, 3 times 2 is 6. Minus 6 is equal to 12. Almost done, guys. Add 6 on both sides. I end up getting 3x is 18. And the final thing is divide by 3 and x is 6. Thank goodness. When solving equations, remember your opposite operations. When dividing fractions, it's much easier to multiply by. That big word that we haven't talked about yet is reciprocal. I'm sure McClure went over that with you a lot. Or I always like to just change the sign and flip. She also says keep, multiply, flip, all those little things to remind you guys to do that. The second step in solving equations is to get all variables to one side of the equation. All right, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching.